And the recording is starting. And the recording is starting. Okay, go ahead and take it away, Susan.
Okay, do you want to go to gallery mode so we can see everybody equally? Can you do that?
We might be able to.
Yeah.
All right.
Hi, everybody. Now I can see everyone. Welcome to the meeting of Wednesday, January 8th of the Salem Public Art Commission. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. And I think it would be nice if we introduce ourselves. So I'll start. I'm Susan Apak. I'm the chair, officially, I guess, the first meeting where I'm the chair of the Public Art Commission.
Brandon Klukas, I'm the Street Maintenance Operations Group Manager for Public Works for the City of Salem.
I'm Kathleen Swarm, City of Salem Staff Liaison for Salem Public Art Commission.
Chris Darcy, Commissioner. Brian Hardy, Commissioner.
Spencer Emmerich, Commissioner.
Krista Lauer, Commissioner.
Guess it's just me. Jennifer Keller, Parks and Recreation Division Manager.
Great, thanks, everybody. Is there any public comment?
There is not.
Okay, next on to approval of the consent agenda. So I guess I'll ask for a motion to accept the agenda and for today and the minutes from the 11th. Can I lump them together like that, or do I need to do them separate?
I think you can lump them together, yes.
Okay. Can I make the motion and then ask for a second?
That's right.
I asked for a second.
Second.
Okay, all approved?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone not approving or abstaining? Okay. That's done. I guess we'll move on to Brandon. Tell us about the Salem Kaiser Together sign replacement.
Right.
Thanks.
I have a little PowerPoint here, just run through. And so if you don't know, the Salem Kaiser sign, we're in the midst of making a transition from what's existing there, that brick structure, to a new concept. And I figured while we're in the room together, we'll kind of introduce and go over the history of the sign, why we're doing what we're doing, kind of the background on the accidents. Do you want me to run the slides or?
We can give it a whirl. Let's see if it.
Enter.
Try an arrow. Try the next arrow. See what that does for us.
Okay.
Try this.
All right. So internet accidents goal is kind of our goals for the group, this collaborative effort here, kind of materials that we have available and what we're going to try to accomplish. As an introduction, the sign sits on a footprint of land, a triangle bordered by Broadway Street, River Road, and Stark to the south. Originally, it was just a plot of grass. And in the 90s, through a collaborative effort with City Kaiser and City of Salem and some other agencies within the community, they came up with the concept that you can see in the aerial image there with the concrete flare outs. And there was some tree plantings in each of the grass strips, and then the circular brick work that had some plantings and then the signs mounted on it. Over time, that's changed. You won't find those flares there anymore. They were removed in 2016. That circle, since it's been installed, has literally, I mean, the same year it was installed, and then every year following, it's been impacted by somebody causing damage to it. In 2016, they thought that perhaps it was the flares giving an indication to the public that the road was continuing. And so that was attracting people to use those areas. But we haven't seen since that time period a reduction in accidents. Our primary impact points are the ones indicated by the arrow there. Unfortunately for us, those are also the primary sight lines for somebody wanting to view something there. So where you would naturally place a sign for somebody to be able to view it, it's also the natural impact point somebody decides they're not gonna make the turn. There's 3 signs, one here, one here. There's also a third sign, some people don't notice, but it's an angle for Broadway as you're approaching here. Fast forward to where we're at now, the last 4 years, we've had a series of impacts, each one causing progressively more damage and progressively more cost for the public. It's to a point where it just does not seem sustainable. It's not an appropriate use in our mind of the public's monies to continuously make those repairs. And we'd like to, and the purpose of this is to come to something a little bit more sustainable. Inside that installation space. I don't know what that looks like. It's why it's blank there. What, what is it gonna be? I don't know. As we're thinking about sustainability, what it means for me and for the group is that these materials that we're gonna utilize for this composition, we need them to be regionally available, generally inexpensive, and quickly sourceable. Part of the difference in other welcoming areas and signs that we have in the area is we have spaces that have sat for 20 years and never once had an impact. This area doesn't seem to be able to sit for even 6 months without being struck. So whatever we're placing into that space, although we want it to be attractive to the community, we need it to be really readily replaceable, using materials that are quickly sourceable by our teams. That the messaging, whatever's on it's easily duplicatable within our existing means. Keeping an idea about the concept that it needs to be discernible from distance. That island, how it sits, is not accessible by pedestrians, and we would not want to encourage people trying to get to that space to view something that maybe has minute details. We want it to be large, viewable 30, 40, 50 feet away as people are traveling at high speeds. And also not promoting people trying to cross and get a better look at it. We're gonna be looking at crash-worthy installations, so things that are designed to break away, absorb that impact, snap off, and then allowing the base structure to be reused in a new installation.
Are people just speeding there?
I think that you would find that it's a variety of different things. It can be people, I think sometimes are distracted, right? Maybe a cell phone use or a radio. Sometimes it's the environment itself. Maybe it's slippery, it's rain, it's icy. I also, sometimes people are inebriated, they're drunk driving. But
Have there been any mitigation, efforts to try to change the traffic impact there, or to do something with color, or?
I would attempt to
Something.
back this up,
Yeah,
but I don't know
we'll
if I'm
let
gonna
you
mess it up.
finish, sorry.
You see. We won't break
Oh,
it. There
okay,
we go.
okay. So over time, if you see the white lines that have been added, we've
Yeah.
added yellowing, we've added DuraPost,
Uh-huh.
just a tubular
Mhm.
marker that kind of gives a visual reflectivity. The flares have been removed. So a variety of things have been tried over time to try to get people out of that space. Things we have avoided is hard impact, so we haven't put up a guardrail. It's just gonna,
People.
well, and also at a certain point there, you're making it so you can't see what then is the point. If we're blocking the view of the thing we're doing, then
Yeah.
why do we have it there? I think is part of that concept too. I'll go back here. An interesting thing here too is just, these are estimated cost of repairs. We didn't actually make the repair in 2024, and in June 2023, we'd gotten the estimate. Before we could even dispatch the contractor to make the repair, it was impacted again. So we had to re-estimate, and then in 2024, we have the one and we said, hey, this is just getting to be too much. That's part of the maintenance. We're looking at 4 things, just like a lot of areas in the city, are revenue versus what the assets need. They are on the same trajectory. So we're looking for installations that are low maintenance and again, quickly repairable, so it doesn't cost us more money. Able to be handled internally, better than having to seek external sources for support. Doesn't show up as good here as I'd hope, but a rough concept that we're having right now for landscaping is we've pulled off the brick facade. that's out there now. The electrical components for some of the irrigation out there were actually attached or adjacent to that brickwork. So we had to shut down electricity to the island, take off the brick. We just recently completed reinstallation of the electricity to the island. And now our intent is to berm downward, if you can envision how the island sits currently, with soil, place some landscaping rocks, use them as a primary, I don't want to say impact point, but that's what it's going to be, a primary deterrent for vehicle entry, and then put our sign concept that we developed behind that to try to at least give it a little bit of protection for that installation. We have to wait for the electrical, to identify where the different irrigation components are because it's been winterized right now. Once that's this week, I think we're gonna fire it back up, see where all those things are, start adjusting those. And then once we have an idea on the sign size and scope, we're gonna install some breakaway bases. I guess we'll go in order. For your guys's just viewing, this is the original sign designs as they face for different directions.
So there are
Probably,
3 different signs.
yeah, 3 completely different sized, depending on what direction you were coming from.
I see.
And they
Like
were,
entering Salem versus entering Kaiser.
Correct,
Right.
Okay.
right. And then the working together collaborative sign,
and they were attached to the brick.
the brick itself.
Round brick behind it, and the brick is what would get impacted and then have to be rebuilt and then signs reattached.
I see.
Right, or the sign that you can see there in the middle sign, that the sign was actually took the brunt of the vehicle on that impact, on this last one,
I see.
when we pulled them. I think on our conceptualization of it, we're probably looking at similar themes, right? Of enjoying Salem,
Mhm.
entering Kaiser, working together, those concepts. We would like to move to material for us, the aluminum standard sign blanks. We have an abundance, it's what the rest of the city's signs are on, right? So we are used to printing on that internally. We can use different shapes of that, but it's something that we can handle quick turnaround within a day. We would move away from this 3-month repair concept that we have. Another option, like an MDF plywood style sign, as you get to certain sizes, the aluminum can't support itself. It will start to buckle. You'll have to do support straps or something. Plywood sometimes, or MDF becomes more a better installation at that point at a certain size point. But it can become cumbersome for a single person. It's just too much weight. Whereas the aluminum is obviously much lighter. On the sign design concepts, we need to be oval or rectangular in nature. The MTCD, we wouldn't want to have a sign that conflicted with another regulatory type of sign. So for instance, an octagon is always a stop sign. We would not want any octagon shape. So we're going to lean towards regulatory is oval or rectangle for this type of sign, welcoming or messaging sign. And again, stressing that theme of trying to kind of capture that original installations concepts. And keeping in mind, people being able to view it at a distance. Before we talk about the breakaway, so our sign installation is going to be done in a slip-based design. So what that means is there'll be a mounted flange inside of a concrete space. And what is designed there is at that flange point or at the post point, which has the holes in it, it'll break away. And then you can reuse the base installation rather than having to reinstall everything.
Has that been used in other signs?
This is an ODOT version, so it's for the highway, for exactly this type of crash worthy installation for somebody to impact it, and then they come back and just put the new sign in. So it'd be an installation similar to this. For us, what we would need to figure out is where we would want to space those bases is going to be dependent on what size of sign we decide to install, right? So the larger the sign, the more spacing we would put between the bases, if that makes sense. And that would be one of our steps that we need to complete before backfilling and starting to support the rest of that area. That's all I had, and I hope it
guess I have a couple of questions. One is, it's when the slide that had the image of enjoy Salem, welcome to Kaiser, and then whatever the middle message was, yeah, working together. It seems like from just a design perspective, if there was more consistency to the look and feel of the different elements, it seems like it would be visually more attractive. I also have been coming down 99 from Southeast Portland recently, and there are several signs in the city. So, and ODOT had a project there, so sometimes traffic was pretty slow. But I was often stopped in Canby, for flaggers and what have you. And they've got if you're going north, coming north from Aurora, as you enter Canby, there's a sign where there's a Vietnam era memorial, there's a helicopter, and then there's another one as you're coming south, where you could turn right into the old part of downtown. And Canby they must have a kind of a stylized dahlia bloom, because they're a dahlia capital there that is part of a logo or a visual identity for the city. And it is very attractive, and it's used the same way if you're coming north and you're coming south. And it seems like I'm all for kind of consistency. So here we've got 3 different colors, maybe one color would work. And also I think just in terms of font, that something more consistent might be convey the same messages, not be overly distracting, so that the person who is either speeding or drunk driving or, looking where he or she shouldn't be, somebody isn't gonna run off the road or crash into something. Have you ever gotten any feedback from just the public about like the look and feel of the signs?
Me personally, no, I have not, no.
Yeah, it's never come up for me, I've lived here for quite a while. So, just kind of curious. I do think the slide that you showed about your thought progression, about these are the issues, these are, this is what we're trying to do, and these are our considerations. Thought that was very thoughtful and made a lot of sense. It should be effective, it should be cheap, it should be easy, we should be able to source what we're gonna build it out of. Yeah, thought that was like right on. Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
I agree that, that you guys put a lot of thought into it, and I'm a graphic designer. So I'm naturally very, I have some biases about the way things are designed, let's say. Salem does have a brand.
It does have a brand,
We
so
have a flag,
Right.
a brand new flag with color, and people have voted on it and they like it. So I would recommend that whoever is designing the new sign, and I think color would be great. I mean, the way, and it would enhance the brand and enforce the brand, and just something that would be impactful visually and people would get it right away. So that's what I would suggest.
I had forgotten about the flag.
Mhm.
I actually attended the raising the flag the day it went up at the Civic Center. I will say the Canby visual identity, it is, there's like a wood color, not wood grain, a brownish rust color as the background. The outline, the dahlia outline, and the welcome to Canby, or whatever the language is in white. So it's very simple. My guess is it's made of some kind of a laminated wood. It looks like it's pretty sturdy.
The
Yeah,
fact that it also has to be Kaiser, though, do they have their own branding,
So I-
visual identity?
right, I'm familiar, and I wondered that isn't where that comes from, is a different brand identity for that city. I know that the original signs were revisited, I want to say 2016. And I know in the initial push, there was a lot of involvement from both cities and a host of other agencies to develop that initial nineties concept.
Is one of those roads, is High Street that turns into Broadway that runs into Kaiser?
Yes,
Is that a state road?
no,
Okay,
Commercial and Liberty as they're heading north, going into the Parkway are state highway.
okay, got it, okay. Just wondering. So what are we helping you with today?
So if you look in your SPAC agenda, I did attach both the original motion that did not mention SPAC and then the amendment, which says move to authorize the removal of existing brick structure and the replacement to the welcome signs that are easier to repair or replace with design collaboration from the Salem Public Art Commission. So it's design collaboration that we are really looking to add to this project. And it doesn't have to, we don't have to have the final design today. Today is about discussing it, and then in my opinion, I would recommend that a path forward or a process is at least thought about and discussed. So whether that looks like appointing chair and vice chair to work with Brandon directly, whether it's setting a series of meetings, creating a subcommittee, whether it's chair and vice chair, who will be point on it. And we can see where the discussion leads as well to decide on next steps. And so we really want to walk away from today with a sense of scope and a sense of process for how we want to have this design collaboration component of it move forward.
I have another question. For the Kaiser sign, are people from Kaiser involved in any decisions about that? Or are we to decide on the Salem sign, Kaiser sign, and what was the third one?
Salem Kaiser together.
Yeah,
So my instruction was that we would work together on this, and then whatever was determined would be submitted to Kaiser, yeah.
is there a way just to have one design that says it all rather than have three separate signs? I mean, is that something we would discuss? I mean, are you saying that we should be having, that maybe we should have a offline kind of meeting and talk about that kind of thing too, and rather than discussing it here, or?
We can do both. So if a quorum is made, it's gotta be a public meeting with notice. If there is a subcommittee formed, we can have as many discussions as we want outside of a meeting with notice or outside. One of the things, maybe Brandon, you can talk to us a little bit about timeline and expectations that have been given to you. Because if we work on a SPAC timeline of we are only working on this at a commission meeting, it will take us, we meet once a month, so it would take us several months to make progress. So do you know what that timeline or expectation is?
And I think there is pressures to have something resolved there sooner rather than later. I don't have an exact date that anybody's prescribed to me that we have to have a resolution, but I do know that there's constant inquiry as to what is the status of what we're doing. I think for us moving forward, there's some things that we can do that move the project forward without having the sign portion exactly figured out, if that makes sense. And some of that is scoping the size of the signs, right?
Right.
Now, we would need to know if it was a singular concept or a three concept. I think from a community standpoint, they would probably be leaning towards a 3-point concept and maintaining some portion of that original installation's kind of historical viewpoints as part of this new installation. It also provides that the sign can be enjoyed from either direction you are approaching the circle from. Whereas if you have a singular installation, there's no way to frame it that you can view it from both River Road North, Broadway, and that stark location simply because of the trees and the angles.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess I was thinking of maybe a sign that would all of them would look similar, but maybe have the same information, like maybe you'd have Kaiser at the top and Salem at the bottom for you're entering Kaiser, you're leaving Salem, and then Salem at the top and Kaiser, so it wouldn't be a similar design possibly for each of them rather than three.
3 separate.
Yeah, I mean, that's just just design head kind of,
And I think that's exactly what
yeah.
we're here for,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Is those types of inputs.
Spencer, do you have experience as an architect kind of working with signage in this way?
A little bit. Typically, we have Salem Sign help us with the exact installation of this, but I mean, we can help with like general design.
Is it something, I mean, as a graphic designer, I think I definitely would want to be involved in a subcommittee, and I was wondering if maybe
Yeah.
Spencer might want to weigh
I was
in on
thinking
that
subcommittee would be great.
kind of thing. Does that sound okay, Spencer, you and I, and
Yeah.
I think we could kind of put our heads together. I don't think it's gonna be that complicated. Cause we could maybe just give instruction about what our ideas, and then I assume you're working with a designer that the city has.
We have some people internally. If it ever gets to a scope where it can't be handled internally, then we would look externally for solutions.
Okay, well, we can
Yeah.
talk about who would do that and then maybe present to the group
Something
here, 1 or 2 designs.
Great.
And then we could vote on them and.
Yeah,
That kind
and
of
probably
thing.
based on the design, we can maybe determine kind of what framework it sits in best,
Yeah.
right? So maybe a certain design sits better in an oval, let's say, than it does in a
Yeah.
rectangle.
Ovals, in my opinion, are a little more difficult to deal with than just a rectangular sign,
Right,
but
and
I
then,
don't know, we
yeah.
have,
well, and two, just putting it out to the group, even if it's a rectangular sign with how you do the backgrounds and stuff, you can mimic a different shape inside of that rectangle.
Yeah,
It becomes easier to replace the rectangle itself, but you have a viewable image
Right.
that looks different.
Did you want to talk a little bit about printing capabilities and what is the option for even printing on a sign?
So right now, what we have is basically a plot mapper that cuts out onto a vinyl, right? And so then you would you would manually pull out that detail, right? Press it onto the sign blank, manually pull out the details. A lot of other imagery we have to send out. But this year we're gonna be getting a sign printer for these installations. It's gonna really kind of open the door for contrast and color and different looks, but we don't have it yet. So
Yeah.
depending on our timelines and what we do, we may do something where we get everything ready and then
Right.
put that up, but we do have some capabilities that will come online that allow us internally to handle a much wider spectrum of what historically we've been able to print.
that sounds like worth the wait if we could,
Yeah,
yeah.
a lot more
Mhm.
possibilities.
I agree.
So, yeah, I think, if we could kind of, we'll work on something to form that subcommittee. Do we need a motion to form a subcommittee?
Yes, let's
Okay.
have a motion.
I'll make a motion to form a subcommittee of the Salem Kaiser Together sign replacement subcommittee with Spencer and myself and Brandon. Or even Brandon.
Great.
Okay.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Hi.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? Okay, passed.
I have another question. So the island has some existing trees. You also mentioned moving in some landscape boulders. I like that idea because I really like what the city did at the intersection across from where Boone's Treasury is.
Oh,
And where I think the addition of the landscape rock and some plantings it's very effective and it's very attractive. So my question is, are you anticipating adding any other landscape material to this island, like a low growing shrub that would be near those rocks, or is it just gonna be kind of a grassed or mulched landscape rock with the existing trees?
I don't wanna overspeak on the irrigation capabilities, but I'm pretty sure we can plant in some different, probably will lean towards something more native.
Native, yeah.
Native plantings
Mhm.
inside of ground cover types inside the
Yeah.
rocks. We would still wanna keep, probably not bushes,
Right.
because we're trying to keep that visual
Right.
lane open,
Mhm.
but something low growing that would kind of intermingle with the
Mhm.
rocks and
Is there lighting?
part of the disconnect there was the disconnect lighting. We anticipate trying to move towards something more green and doing a solar installation on the signs themselves for lighting, either up lighting or down lighting, as depending on the sign.
That could help for nighttime accidents too.
Yeah, there is currently lighting there and it doesn't seem to have deterred anybody, but
Maybe
or the
brighter, a
wood.
little bit brighter.
Yeah,
or something. I don't know. Try to put that. Okay,
Sounds good.
great. Anybody else have any further comment on this? Great.
The only thing we could do very quickly is, Chris, if you know where, in Canby, this is 99 going from Aurora to Canby.
Okay, let's see, Barlow, it's farther, keep going north. See the Canby High School sign? Go over from Canby High School to, there's a Burger King. There's Burgerville.
Okay,
Okay, then go south a little bit, see where those pine trees are growing?
okay.
That's where the helicopter is. Oh, okay.
It could be an older. Could be an old,
I found it online if you want me to share my screen.
that would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
It's right in that, before that helicopter.
Let's see.
I spent a lot of quality time stuck in traffic there. Oh, you know what, the road is really nice now. There it is.
Oh, nice. That's beautiful.
Nice. Yeah, no, that's
Sign.
beautiful.
And
That's really
I like
nice.
the fact that there is kind of a place-based design element, the dahlia,
Yeah,
and then it's nicely designed
yeah,
and you can see it.
really nicely designed. And the colors bright, that orange and the really clear font and
Yeah.
that looks like it's been kind of die cut on the, you know, or laser cut or something on, I don't know if that's something that's I don't know if that's anything that could be done but or necessary to do, but that's pretty fancy.
Anyway, it did catch my eye, and there's a similar one as you're coming south.
Yeah.
They also have a rail line that goes right through there,
Yeah.
so, yeah, the placement of the one going, the southbound one's a little bit different. Anyway, I noticed it, I knew this was coming up on the agenda, and I thought I would just mention it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's a
I think
great
we can
example.
research other signs,
Yeah.
other,
Right.
and also,
So I love the concept. The only thing I would love that concept if we print it and put it on,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Just to-
on the aluminum sign.
On the
Yeah,
alu- yeah,
without the laser cutting. That's what I pointed out.
I've never seen the back of that sign,
Yeah,
so I don't know what its construction of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but something like that could be just.
Yeah.
Right,
Or some,
yeah.
or, you know, we have that great, whatever that is, that clover thing on the flag,
It's a cherry blossom.
It's a
cherry blossom sign.
Yeah.
I should have known that. But
Because
I
we're in
love
Cherry
the
City.
nice element to work with, and then we have the color palette, it's like it almost can design itself.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Brandon.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The subcommittee and myself, I'm sure will be in touch soon, and thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to working with you on this
We'll
project.
try to have something by the next meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you'll hear from us before then, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, very nice to meet you all.
Yeah, great to
Yeah,
meet you.
nice to meet you as well.
Okay, moving along, is it a session or accession of the Library Art Commission?
Yeah,
A session?
It is accession.
Yeah, it
Accession.
almost sounds like it has an accident.
Yeah, accession of the library. How's that coming along?
It's coming.
Okay.
We heard back from the Salem Public Library Foundation. They have a meeting on the 16th of this month where they are hoping to finalize the contract, and they said they will get back to us by the 20th. So hopefully
20th of this.
this month. So by the end of the month, we should definitely hear back from them. It's with them and they're reviewing all the information.
Okay. And I don't know if you had wanted to put this as part of the agenda or just an announcement that the presentation to council has been postponed. Probably until February, so hopefully we'll be able to announce that the accession has been completed by then, so.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And again, as I mentioned at the last meeting, I think it would be good to just have a frank conversation with the foundation about how much news they want to
Yeah.
make of this transfer.
Great.
Is there some reason why they would not want to?
I don't know, but this has been a long time coming, and there are a number of people who feel like the Library Foundation is a better steward than the city. Obviously, they made the move this is only part of the foundation collection is coming to the city, not all. Other parts have been given to other people.
So they're deaccessioning it to the whole thing, but not all of it to the city.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that would be interesting, because we would probably wanna, I would imagine, Krista, would wanna put it out there in social media, and we should be sensitive if. Although I think the more we put it out there that we're excited and that we're good stewards, I think is a positive thing, so that people do know. I have heard a little comment about what you've said, and I think that we need to make sure that people understand that we are good stewards.
Yes,
and that
yeah.
It is a good move and positive, so.
We'll be in contact on the 20th. We should hear back from them, and we'll go from there. We'll see what the conversation is like and how we're moving forward and how quickly.
And hopefully they feel good about it.
Yeah,
I mean,
oh yeah.
So they would want to let people know. Okay, 2025 project prioritization and tracking, and I like your spreadsheet here. I've been printing it out, even it's kind of tiny here, but it's funny because I started with the long range ones, and I was like, wait a minute, that's where's all that? And then I'm not great with spreadsheets, but getting to the one with all of the work plan and everything, I think pretty much everything is on here that we had discussed.
I think so, and I'll go ahead and share with the group as
Yeah.
well. Take a minute to get this all going. I made some slight adjustments after our last meeting, and there's not a lot that we need to discuss today because a lot of this takes major discussion in detail. So I'm not necessarily suggesting that we should go into depth about all of the projects today because all of those deserve their own time. It's more again about talking about process moving forward, that I created this as a framework. I added some projects to it. It is completely up to the commission of what projects they would like to prioritize in 2025. I mean, even today, we added a subcommittee, so things are change and they're fluid, but an in-depth conversation needs to be had, and I would put it to the chair and the vice chair to decide how they would like to decide that these projects get prioritized and how they would like to receive input from the rest of the commission to decide on what projects are going to be at the top of the list. And I also added a second tab here for future projects and long-term goals for Chris that I went through and I added some.
Well, great, so we're not making a decision, we're not voting on
No.
anything today.
We're
I
not
think
voting
this
on
is
it.
good progress and definitely moving in the right direction.
Another component to this is I did see on the January 13th council agenda that we did get bumped from, that they are making appointments to commissions, and there is an appointment recommendation for SPAC
Oh, great.
listed on the 13th. So I would imagine that that will move forward, so as soon as the next meeting, we might even have another commissioner added. So that's something for Susan and Christine to take into account, that that we might have a new commissioner, and therefore you may want their input. How you gather input from the team, you can also, you've received input now for actual several years, so you might have a good sense of where we want to go with projects. But if you decided to, let's say, take a survey or get feedback from the rest of the commission, you can decide how to do that, and then we can work together to decide how to prioritize projects. And also, one of the suggestions I made is an assignment, or a possibility rather, is an assignment to different subcommittees. For some of those that are not as exciting as others, like database and things like that.
Right.
You know, do we want to make it moving forward that every January at this January meeting, that there's an assignment of subcommittees? It's things that you can consider, and this little spreadsheet can work as your framework for doing that.
I just have a quick question. How, when these meetings are noticed, how is that notice done? I know you send out an agenda, it's posted online. Is there anything that would be a flag to people in the community who care about art things, community art, you know, those kinds of issues, that would let them know, would steer them to the fact that they could listen into a meeting or they could attend something in person? You know, because this is the sign thing is kind of interesting. People might care, somebody might drive to work that way, you know. But is there any other notice that's made to flag people who care about the arts in Salem?
Yeah, there's nothing beyond posting it available for people to find it, and then it referenced in multiple places, typically online or within other meetings. So people, it's not as if a mailer goes out in the mail
Right.
or a mass email goes out, but there are lots of even emails and mailers that will reference the Public Art Commission or different commissions, or the council meeting that then references the commission, and then that can be found on our website is the agenda and minutes.
Is there any reason why Krista couldn't do a post the week before our meeting and say, hey, this is, you know, the meeting's open to the public, these are the topics that we're gonna be covering? So I know before our neighborhood association meetings, I actually send out a little newsletter, but also I make sure to post online and say, hey, this is what the meeting is, this is what we're doing. So is there any reason why that couldn't happen? At least it could reach some of our, you know, social media people, and then it could possibly be a post that they could also go into the city little newsletter that they put out.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason why that couldn't. Is that right, Jennifer? Yeah, and I think it is the point of view, everything I've heard is the point of view of the city that we want the interaction, we want the engagement for this.
Transparency,
And
yeah.
transparency, we want engagement from our community, so
Great
any way
idea.
that you guys are wanting to share and spread would be great.
So if I can just jump in, yeah, there's fine. There would be nothing that would prohibit it. You might, Kathleen, as a suggestion, another avenue to kind of spread that messaging is to work with Kathy Ersprung on the communications team to share that information. If you want it even more globally, the city communications teams weekly meets with like the Statesman and Salem Reporter, right, for information that, you know, they can help kind of spread and facilitate. And that might be another opportunity to kind of use that weekly meeting to kind of share that, hey, it's transpiring, here's this specific agenda item. I mean, it's just kind of like, you know, also how much response do you want kind of thing. So, but those are a couple of mechanisms that you can implore as well if you really want to try to spread the message even a little further.
Great, thanks, Jennifer, I appreciate
Krista,
it.
what do you think of that idea?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's definitely something that we can integrate and yeah, basically schedule the week before we have our meeting just so that people are aware. And if there's also a post and a photo or an artwork that can kind of complement whatever would be discussed as well, tying it in that way. So yeah, absolutely. I think that would be great. Yeah, I can definitely add that to the plan.
Yeah, Chris, I'm wondering if the communications team could even make a post specifically about the meeting dates and times, although we discussed the times changing, so maybe even just the meeting dates. Potentially for 2025, like if you're wanting to join a SPAC meeting or you're interested in what the Salem Public Art Commission is doing in 2025, here are the dates.
And a link, and just a link to where it
To our
is.
website, yeah.
Yeah.
Something.
Well, I'm in conversation with Kathy right now, actually already, just because I know the last meeting we talked, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping ahead into my report.
Oh, great.
But we talked about kind of seeing if there was maybe a different day or time as well to also do the posts. So we have a thread going right now to kind of sort that out. So I can just tack this on and ask her as well what she thinks. And yeah, I can let you all know what she thinks from there.
Great, so maybe we can add that to the community engagement list here of I don't know what you would call it, just engaging the, you know, publicizing to the community about our meetings and inviting them to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when we do go out to the neighborhood association meeting, we can, you know, say, hey, you know, come and join our meetings. And there was that meeting, Chris, that was the community-wide meeting that was held that I went to, that you had at Pringle Hall.
Mhm.
There were, you know, organizations were invited and individuals. I don't remember how I heard about it, but I heard about it, and it was I think that was something we had talked about doing too. Just kind of an update. I mean, I know we're planning to do it with the neighborhood association chairs and then go around to neighborhood associations. But it might be worth thinking about doing some kind of a public meeting this year.
We did it really to help develop more of a strategic plan and to engage with the broader public. And so my experience with neighborhood associations is that a certain kind of person attends those meetings. They might be interested in land use, public safety issues, my experience is less specific issues around arts and culture, for example, or design. And so the idea behind the community meeting that we held was to specifically invite people to come together to talk about kind of their ideas about where the arts fit in their part of Salem. You know, maybe they were an artist, maybe they had kids, maybe they were interested in public art. And there was very good attendance. It was at Pringle Hall, it was full. And we heard, surprisingly, without setting this up, we heard consistent messages. I want art in my neighborhood. I want to see art in my part of Salem. Let's get more murals, thanks for bringing more art downtown. And I found it to be just very productive. And, culture is really about where people live and what they believe in. And there is so much ferment in the world today that it was really a wonderful conversation to be part of. Because people were just thinking positively about what we want our city to be about, through kind of an artistic lens.
But I got very excited about it, got interested, but I did feel that there wasn't a means at that time to follow up. Whereas now we have the social media, we have the city newsletter where we can encourage people and let them know, hey, sign up for this. You can follow the city, you can follow even Chris's what is it, a Facebook page, which is, about public art, that we can say people, tell people that they can find more information there. So it's something to consider, whether we want to do it or not. It's an undertaking.
Well, and then, it was pre-COVID. I think it was before the development of the plan for the public art at the police station, which did have a public component. The artist came, we had a number of gatherings where that artist was present, the public contributed the words for the piece. And before the library also there was a very public facing side to the public art that went in there, and, a very super diverse patron base for the library. I'm all for just engagement, people in Salem have a lot of opinions. I don't agree with many of them, but it's good to have the conversation. And you never know when you're gonna get that nugget of a great idea that it's like, whoa, nobody ever thought of that. Let's look at it.
Right.
So
We don't want to operate in a bubble. I think there has been perception in the past, and I've kind of talked to people about it, is that the commission is like the arbiters of taste, of aesthetic taste, and if we don't like it, it's not gonna happen, especially with murals. So I think the more we can be transparent and reach out and let people know what we do, and that they're welcome to have input, the better.
Yeah.
the better it is. So maybe it's something we add, I don't know, for this year or maybe next year. Maybe we put it on the long term. It might be a little bit too ambitious to do it this year, but
you know what? It was free.
yeah.
It was free. It was in a city-owned building
Yeah.
during the daytime. I don't believe, there might have been some very light refreshments, but nothing substantial.
Yeah.
The parking is free. You can take a bus there. I mean, it's a pretty accessible space. And it was in the middle of the day, so you could come and go. And
Well, if we do give our presentation to the chairs of the neighborhood associations and we plan this thing, we could publicize it and say, hey, we're gonna have this thing, tell your, your neighbors to come. So maybe it's worth, I don't know, what do we do? Do we put together another subcommittee to plan a meeting, or?
Well, I would suggest is to have both you and Chris take a look at the projects here. Prioritize projects and see if it's a project you want to prioritize and put on for 2025. Once you take a look at this, you might think, there's other things that need to, or we would like to take precedent, or perhaps it's something that you would like to add to 2025, and then you can take a look at the calendar and think, I want to, for community engagement, we want to host an event. And then you can look at the calendar, think, okay, we know when these things are going to be, when it's a really busy time for SPAC. looking at it, September seems like a great time, right? Let's look at potentially hosting an event in September. We're prioritizing that, and that will be one of the things we'd like to focus on in the next year.
Some of these things will, especially I'm thinking about the mural program application update, involves, you know, city staff because they would have to, whether you or someone else would have to actually create the electronic form, it would have to go up on the website. The language on the website would change, which is all something we really wanna do. But how much can we ask and expect of city staff to be able to do that in a timeline if we create a timeline for that?
That's a great question. You know, only a certain percentage of my time am I available to support with this, but we can work through some of that as a commission, where some of the work, if it's specific language that needs to be decided on, that could be decided by the subcommittee or the commission as a whole. So therefore, I'm not thinking of language. I'm not putting together the application. I'm not creating the application. What I'm doing is posting it. And I have enough time and capacity to post it or to work with our internal desktop publishing group to post these things and make updates to the website. I don't have capacity to completely redo all of the application myself or find wording for myself. And then on top of that, work with internal departments to post it. So once we look at a prioritization of projects, we can determine from there my capacity to help within those and how much of that is going to have to be work done by the commission.
I have just a quick question, and I appreciate and understand all that. It seems like there hasn't been kind of public mention yet of the mural that Eddie worked on. And I still haven't had a chance to go over, now that the rain has stopped, I probably will try to get over there this week to see the mural, but could you consider a post on that mural, Krista, that would then let people know that they could, Salem welcomes more mural proposals, because this would be a good time for folks to be thinking. And then they could come back in a few months if they had an idea and a site. But it just seems like that might be a good sort of, teaser to put out to the public. That,
Absolutely.
hey, do a drive-by, appreciate this, and then, here's where the application is, even if it's not perfect. But, is that something you would think about?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Kathleen, can you send me the final images that we got of it?
Definitely.
I can
We
work
don't
on
have,
that.
unfortunately, we don't have that much information about it. Eddie's kind of moved on, so we can find out from someone else that I had talked to, some more information about some of the artists. Yeah, and we're featuring it in the presentation to council also, but yeah, that would be a great idea.
Yeah, and maybe like Eddie, you could use the approach with Eddie that we could really do something with this mural if he could just take 20 minutes and send the names of the people. We don't need a bio,
Yeah, I'll try to reach out to him again and see what I can find out. But also in the application, I was wondering if there's a description also, if you look back at the application.
Yeah, we'll look at the application. I think we have a little description
Yeah,
about it just featuring multiple
also the
local
owner of
artists.
the building. We might be able to more easily get in touch with him and get more information too.
I think now would be a really good time to just get the word out there. And then this is the perfect time for someone who might be thinking about a mural to actually really think about it. To be able to
The thing is
execute.
that when you go to that page on the website, it's so discouraging, I find, because it's so right away up front, it sounds like you're entering an illegal, thing, so it would be great if we could just change the language even on
Mhm,
that,
mhm.
you know, move some things around or add a paragraph saying, Salem wants murals, we'll help you, you know. Just even that would help a lot.
I haven't been on that page in a while. I'll at least take a look at it. Yeah, I mean, I wish there was a good way to let property owners know that, you know, you could do something here.
I think we should make that a priority. That whole, the whole mural program should be a priority for 2025.
Well, I keep driving around our Scan neighborhood, thinking that I'm gonna find a great, a great wall. That we could find some business support to help, do something, but I haven't found it yet.
There are plenty in my neighborhood, but you know,
And some of the, as we drove around West Salem to look at the sculpture site, there are some opportunities over there. Some of them would be very daunting to actually execute on, because some of the older buildings are in bad shape. But it would be unbelievable if something happened.
so do we need to make a firm kind of commitment to do this prioritization and with Chris and I kind of putting our heads together for next meeting and kind of make some goals, maybe 4 goals of what we want to do this year, what our priorities are?
I envision this as somewhat of a living document. So that, like today, heard a presentation, responded to a directive from council, waited a subcommittee. Something could happen that comes up next month and the month thereafter, so. I mean, I do see some things are gonna be completed, other things are gonna get added. And maybe it's something that it becomes part of our agenda at every meeting to look at the update that's part of the agenda.
Yeah, and what I would suggest bringing to the next meeting is that, that you guys take a look at the projects and which ones do you want to assign a task force to? It could be a committee, it could be an individual person. We could work on it as an entire commission, but it's hard to really make progress. It's a one time a month sort of come together, talk through it sort of situation. So I suggest a subcommittee or an individual person. So Chris and Susan, if you guys want to take a look at in 2025, we know that we want to make updates to the mural program and the application. And that's something we want to prioritize and we want to assign a task force, whether it's individual or subcommittee. And we also know we want to create a public utility art wrap program in 2025, or we want to at least develop that. Prioritizing these things that we know we want to work on, beyond just talking about them at our
Yes.
monthly commission meeting. So that's what I would suggest the two of you do, is work together and come back to the commission at the next meeting with which items you would like to actually see an assignment of commissioners to, whether that's again, individuals, subcommittee, or some of these, perhaps they are just topics that we bring up as a commission as a whole.
One thing that I don't see on the list is, and I think because council made that motion, we do need to move toward having the city approve temporary art for Salem. And I'm not exactly sure how we do that because it requires code change, I would believe. So that would I think that needs to be on the list.
Public, and so, if we wanted to talk about temporary art installations and making progress towards that. Again, we could have a group of individuals, or we could talk about it as a whole, put another task or project or focus topic on there, of public art. If we want to think about code changes, that's like a subsection of public art installations, temporary public art installations. Another progress that we did make was that now we have found a process for temporary art installations to happen in our public parks, which is progress. So potentially, what we want to do in 2025 is report back to council that that's the progress we've made. And as a commission, perhaps you say, and we think about it, it's discussed that in 2025, we're not going to go through code changes. Instead, we're going to move forward with the process to try and encourage more temporary art installations in parks. And that's the pathway we want to look at for getting temporary art installations in our city that we found, and that's probably the best one to do rather than look at code changes for temporary art installations on sidewalks or buildings or other open spaces rather than parks. It's just one thing to do, but it's something that, like, I think Tank would have to go behind, and then a process for how you want to look at it. Again, perhaps what we
It's something
know.
we would need to still look at, though. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think we'd have to make that decision.
Great, yeah. And so that can definitely go on this work plan. And then we can go from there. And again, scope for most of these things can be really large or really small, and you can decide how you want to approach it.
I think it's good to put it into this matrix. I do agree that we should support ideas using the arts in some kind of a temporary way in the parks and even beyond. So the knitting thing was a easy, super low risk, short duration first step. Looking forward, I could see something that might be again, a short duration, maybe associated with a festival in a park like World Beat, that could incorporate, I don't know, a gigantic origami installation.
Man.
I mentioned low risk and we have fire issues here in Oregon in the summer. But thinking about just some, not limiting it to the parks. I mean, I would love to see a projection on a wall in downtown Salem. It doesn't involve any paint, fire, fencing. And there are artists in Oregon who are very, who are recognized for this kind of work, and it's quite striking. And it could be up for a month. I mean, I spoke to the owner of the Capitol Tower downtown about rear projections in the windows along Liberty Street. And ultimately, the building owner didn't want the risk of anyone using the building. But there are some low-cost options that would bring people downtown or bring people to a wall in West Salem.
Yeah.
And with using artists of note, that could just be exciting for people in Salem.
And it's something we could encourage, again, let people know that there is the option of proposing to do something like that, and it's allowed. At least in the parks for now. So maybe we publicize that somehow too, if an artist has an idea for, I know, Brian, you did something with what was that project where people wrote things or? Yeah, I mean, something like that.
Low risk.
Should be
Low cost.
encouraged.
Yeah, we still have, we're trying to find a permanent home for it. for that
Yeah.
artwork.
What about a temporary home? Maybe do it again in the park, you know, or something.
Temporary.
So Brian, not to interrupt, so we've had some discussions internally about that before I die thing, which I'm happy to reach out to you kind of offline
Okay.
about that on some suggestions, but the only thing I just want to, and not to interject into your conversation, but the only thing I just want to be careful of is when you're soliciting and yes, we're looking at, you know, through council's direction, temporary in parks, and we're supportive of that, you know, hence the recent installation that we did. I just want to be careful in how we word things for folks. We do not want to, there's a process, right? And depending on what's the even temporary art, what's being recommended, there's some things we need to look at from a parks perspective on where it makes sense to install something, where it can, you know, the type of maybe installation, does it meet the other activities that happen in the park or from a maintenance standpoint. So I just want to be really clear that folks don't, it's fine to suggest ideas, but I don't want them to assume that just because someone's making a saying, hey, I want this at Riverfront, I think this would look great in the North Meadow, you know, kind of thing, that it necessarily can happen. So it's really just to facilitate a conversation about the feasibility of it, as opposed to anyone definitively thinking that whatever is recommended would necessarily happen, because we may have a counter opinion on that. So I just want to caution that I don't want folks to definitively think that they suggest something or here we're going to do that and that automatically happens. That needs, it's starting a conversation about the facilitation of making that happen.
Well, maybe sometime in the future, there can be guidelines and a program actually created the way the street painting program, where there are definite things, do's, don'ts, you know, it has to be submitted. There are certain things that have to be submitted and approved. And, you know, it could be a program. So it wouldn't be just somebody saying, hey, I want to do this. So.
Well, for sure, you know, a process and criteria is important, but there's all of the parks are very different and they serve a different purpose. And so there's always a caveat on each, it's not cookie cutter that what apply in one park can just easily apply in another park. And so, you know, there's always going to be a little bit of a caveat, even with, you know, prescribed, the process, yes, can be, here's the review, but even following that process, we may have a differing opinion in how we're going to resolve that. So I'm just, again, I'm all for a process. I'm all for encouraging temporary art in the parks. I just want to be careful that that's kind of established, knowing that, again, that there's a caveat that all parks are different and serve a different purpose.
Well, certainly the Parks Department would be really involved in
Yes.
any kind of thing like that.
Yeah,
Or should it ever, you know.
And so when Jennifer and I talking about it, and I believe I mentioned this at our last commission meeting, that the process in general as it stands right now that we followed with the Scars for Salem installation, that I would see us following again, is that any sort of temporary art installation that organization or an individual comes to us with, they would come to SPAC, and SPAC could then make their recommendation to move forward with it or not. And then that recommendation, from that, there are permits that actually have to be filed for any use of the park. So a permit would get filed, and then that permit would go into review from with the Parks Department. And so nothing would get signed, no permits would be final, nothing would actually happen until there was actually a review from Parks staff. And then from there, it could move forward. So either that review could come back with comments and adjustments, and it can come back to SPAC in the organization that wishes to make these installations.
I think from what I understand, it was suggested and encouraged by someone in legal department that anything along those lines, including the street painting program, should involve SPAC.
Mm.
I don't know if that's something that's in the pipeline or if that's, you know, being considered, but if that's the case, you know, it does seem to make sense. but.
It makes it just, I've had some questions about the utility wrap process. So far, you know, whose work is selected by, what are the locations and so on. It seems like this body actually has the knowledge about the work, the artists, the arts in our city, and we would be able to make at least an informed recommendation, if not say okay on something. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay, should we move on? Anybody else have any comments about the prioritization and tracking? Okay, moving on. Art pedestal acquisition. Chris, do you want to just bring everybody up to speed on what's going on with that?
sure, just the short answer is, we've had a hard time meeting since our last meeting because the holidays, travel, etc. We have a meeting scheduled for Friday, January 17th. Kathleen and other folks in the city were able to share some of the documents that I at least had asked about in terms of, okay, here's the location in West Salem, what's the plan for the surrounding area? We got more information regarding the Block 50 development plans and an update for the one downtown site. I revised kind of the draft of the guts of a solicitation document. And we need to again sit down as a group on the 17th and try to move that forward, you know, to resolve. I think we're actually, I know I feel like we've gotten a good amount of information that I was missing a month ago. A number of us are just also looking at artists in our region who might be people to receive whatever the final solicitation is. So, you know, people who completed recent commissions for the state or another government. That's in process. It will be very, Susan and I visited the West Salem site. It's a little barren right now. And I think the development around that art pedestal is, it's not immediate, you know, it's gonna be a while. What, I don't personally know what the timeline is on Block 50 stuff. But 2 consultants have been retained in terms of the development and yeah, is that?
Yeah, I really appreciate, Chris, that you put together this document that we can kind of now really sink our teeth into, a lot of, you know, details we just have to iron out. And, the example that you sent of another RF, was that an RFQ or?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I met with an artist today about another project who does, art, you know, public work. And she was saying, I hope it's an RFQ, and not an RFP, because that would move things along more quickly and.
Yeah, I think the reality of just acquiring sculpture is that people do not have a large sculpture sitting on a shelf at their home or their studio. There are several artists who have recently passed away. Their estates do have some existing work. And a couple of those artists are on my list to look at because some of them have been very important in Oregon. They're now dead and there is available work. Someone had a large property where you could make a lot of work over the years. With a request for qualifications, you ask for what the person's done in the past, you know, what their track record is, and then what they might think about in terms of developing a design moving forward. Typically, if you select several finalists, which is what happened at both the police station and the library, you pay those people a stipend to do that work. You're not asking for them to create something for free. That's just not right. But it's a very, very interesting process to go through. I think there were maybe 10 finalists for the library and maybe close to that for the police station. And those people came in, they brought samples of materials, they talked about their work, and it was really fascinating, especially with the police people. Because that was a very diverse group of people making the selection of the works of art. But anyway, I think that we'll get to the crux of that at our meeting on the 17th, hopefully. And, you know, I am just mindful that if we need to be, obviously I'm talking to people who do work in parks. You know, the summer is when the rubber hits the road for things happening, like in the ground, outdoors, you know, up through the end of September. And so it would be good to get our solicitation prepared and posted, and then have the, you know, responses come in, and then, you know, see where we are. It's exciting. I mean, every time I walk into this building, I love passing that sculpture. So, yeah, and Salem should have more stuff like this. Not that I'm
It's
biased.
a great
or anything.
opportunity that we have, that it's just kind of put in our laps, even though the budget is on the small side, but I'm sure we could find something.
The budgets, I think that the downtown development team is thinking about funding based on their investments that were made a number of years ago. And the buying power is less than it used to be. That's a reality.
Yeah,
But
hopefully we'll find something.
yeah, you know, we'll never know until we get the solicitation out. So I'm happy to work on it with the rest of our group.
And that's Krista, myself, and Chris are working together on that. Anything else about the art pedestal acquisition? Okay.
One comment.
Mhm.
It would be really good for SPAC to stay in touch with the urban development people. I'm not sure that they discussed the installation of these 3 recent art wells with anyone before the city actually did the mechanical work below grade. And so after this 3, is there another 3 that are penciled in somewhere? That would be good to just keep track of on our radar moving forward.
Well, at what point do we involve them?
Well, whatever their zone is, it's an urban development zone. And so, are you talking about the 3 ones we're working on right now?
Yeah, you were saying we should talk to them. I mean, should we, we have there was one guy who just came on, I think, that had sent us an email, or is that another project I'm thinking about?
He's on both of them. He
Oh,
is
okay.
the utility boxes and
Right, utility.
and
Okay.
the sculptures actually.
So
yeah.
maybe, should we be updating him about what we're doing?
I think that there should be a meeting. If there's an update, it should be to the board. There's a board, a downtown development board, like this one.
So at what point do we do that? After we have our meeting and we get the document finalized, or our thoughts finalized, and then meet with them before we actually create the solicitation?
Yeah, I'm assuming the draft RFP will be shared with them. Is that right, Jennifer? Or do we need to receive their comments back, or would we share the final or a draft?
I mean, I think really they're looking for you guys to create it and to be the lead. So I don't know that it's necessary to share with them a draft, versus, I mean, you can, you know, that's just an added step in the process, or whether you share that with them on, here's the final document, here's the document that we put out for those solicitations. So, I mean, I think it's really your call. That's just an added layer, to put in there, but I don't know that there's an expectation from them to see a draft document. It seems like in the emails and in previous conversations, it's just more kind of in general terms on kind of what a status update. You know, hey, we're working on the RFP, or we're looking for the RPF, or hey, we need to carry the money over, those kinds of things. So I've not seen anything where they've expressed an interest in seeing definitive kind of information on stuff. It seems a little more global and universal.
Anything else? On that, okay, Krista, you wanna bring us up to speed on social media? What's going on?
Yeah, so today's been very fruitful, I think, in our discussion as well, in terms of thinking of what to do for the rest of the month. But the first one of the year is just going to be kind of looking ahead. So I chose an abstract painting because I think that's just a nice subjective and thoughtful way to move forward. And everyone kind of has their own opinions about what they want to see from us and see from things going forward. So it's a painting called Northwest Coast by Michael Daly. So that will be the feature this week. And yeah, next week, part of one of the things that's included is just us kind of excited to share past projects and upcoming projects so that it still gives us the ability to talk about a lot of the works that are already included in our collection, but then opportunity as well when we do have things come up that we're eager to share, being able to promote those. So yeah, I think next week it'll feed really nicely then as well into the mural conversation. I know also we are going to talk about this, but we have the black discs have been deinstalled, and so those are being conserved right now. So I think also being able to then bring in conservation, which I haven't really touched on too much yet, and how that's a really kind of essential part of public art as well, and part of our duties as stewards of the city and repairing these works. That will be on the near horizon.
Is the Michael Daly painting on a utility wrap box, on a utility box wrap?
I don't know if it was or not. It's not on any of the ones yet.
Okay, I thought
What does it look like? I haven't, it's in the booklet.
I'm thinking that it might be across from, it might be near the Seas Candy corner. Anyway, I don't want to bog down the discussion, but
I think I have the list of what they're doing.
anyway,
This is the.
I don't want to distract the conversation. Maybe. Because it is really fun to run into those paintings on the utility boxes.
Yeah.
And I've heard nothing but really positive things. So, as you call out work where there's an overlap,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking at the list right now. He's not on the list, or that work's not on the list.
Okay.
But yeah, that's also definitely part of the plan, is once we have the new ones too, being able, some of them I've already done a feature on them, but the ones that are new that I haven't, absolutely. If there's any way we can do the crossover and call those out, I definitely want to be able to do that.
Yeah, great.
I love that we're educating the community about the collection, the artworks in the collection, but I do also think that it would be great to publicize the work of the commission a little more, like we talked about, like what we're doing and with the black discs and the when the meetings are, and just to kind of focus a little more on that. Even when we do finally give the presentation to council, it might be good to have a little shout out and say, hey, while you're watching the council meeting, we're gonna be having a presentation of what we've done this year. I mean, sort of a little more publicity in there. I don't know how other people feel about that, but to me, it seems like that's a good way to kind of get people to know what the commission is about.
I think it's a great idea. The presentation is really well done. There's visually very attractive, lots of content, and it seems like maybe we can use our own networks to remind our friends across the city that they can tune in to the council meeting, they can stream. They probably will be able to view the report as the agenda is posted for the public. And then I would hope that it could be maybe included under the public art section on the city's website. Because there's a lot of good information. And you can appreciate, no matter what direction you're coming from, like, I want more stuff in my neighborhood. I want a mural, I want a street mural. There's plenty to get your arms around, which is good.
And I think that it will also act as the basis for a presentation to the neighborhood associations, that presentation, so.
Yeah.
And I've also started at my own neighborhood association meeting to put on the agenda a little update from the Public Art Commission. Just to tell them what's going on,
Great.
so it might be something.
I happen to be sitting,
Unofficially,
I happen to be sitting next to a neighborhood association
Yeah.
officer for my neighborhood.
Yeah, just to, you know, it's just as a way, I mean, I said we are gonna be doing a, you know, coming around or doing a presentation for the chairs, but in the meantime, you know, there's a little few minutes, I just take a few minutes just to say about I just told them about the utility wraps, you know, that kind of thing, just.
Well, also, because I happened to be in the library over the weekend and I was up on the second floor where I hadn't been before. There is information about some of the artists who have work in the city collection who come from specific neighborhoods in Salem, or who came from specific neighborhoods in Salem. And I think it's interesting to just make those connections.
Yeah.
Like Eileen Cotter Howell, who has a utility wrap outside Wild Pear, lives in West Salem. You know, it's good to
Yeah,
kind of
it
just
is, yeah.
share information.
That's a good thing for us to know when we do the neighborhood association presentation, to kind of point out what artists
Mhm,
live or have lived.
mhm. Or who went to Chemeketa or teach at
Yeah,
Chemeketa.
yeah, well, you can help that if you have that historic knowledge.
Well, I mean, some, others, I mean,
Yeah,
you
more
know,
than, that's.
that's why I think it's just good to
Yeah,
dribble some facts out that
yeah,
people can grab onto.
yeah. Okay, anything else about social media? Moving on, we've got the Black Christmas up there on screen. Is that taking it out?
I was able to go see when it was removed. I was there in person when Lee and assistant came and removed the sculpture.
Which one is Lee?
Lee is this one here, I believe.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell with the hands. Haven't seen Lee in a while.
I just didn't know how old he is or anything. Is he a young guy?
He's not old.
Yes, he's very young, if he's tuning in, very young. He's the age that you would appreciate being called young.
Uh-huh.
He did a giant sculpture outside the State Lands Building
Yeah, I
on
know
Summer Street.
he's somebody we're gonna send our RFP to.
Were the discs, is there a below grade footing down there?
No. There were bolts. And the bolts went directly into the concrete here, and I have it kind of zoomed in up on the screen. So the bolts went directly into the concrete.
Oh, wow.
And so you can see here where it was just set on the concrete and bolted in. Sure, you probably, oh, and you know what it was, is I think, I probably can't zoom in anymore. There were, almost like clamps here. It was like a clamp here and then the bolt went through the clamp. And there were 4 clamps.
Oh, yeah. It's great to have these kind of process shots.
Yeah,
Look at that moss.
Yes.
yeah.
It's great to have this
Great
documentation.
to use that when it's finally finished to show the process. Is there a timeline for when he hopes to have it done?
As early as the end of this month.
Wow,
That's
Okay.
great.
can we have an event, something to kind of let people know it's being reinstalled and come out and sort of celebrate it, or?
Yes, I think we should at least let people know. I'll be in contact with Lee only because I believe it was yesterday, I had an email from a community member who says that they are friends with someone who I believe is in their 90s who made an original donation towards this piece, I believe is what the story is. And that they're really interested to hear about the repair and that she
Oh,
would
that's so
like
cool.
to come out and see if
Is
it's
it Britta,
possible.
is it Britta France?
I believe so, actually.
Oh,
I believe so.
I figured,
That
just
sounds, that's really familiar.
between donations, age, yeah, she lives, if it's the same woman.
Huh.
They've made, I think that they've made more than one donation toward artwork. And lived in Candelaria for a long time. Her family had a clothing business in downtown Salem. They fled Germany during the Holocaust. Yeah, she's been very involved over the years. She lives at Capitol Manor.
That would be.
That all
wonderful.
sounds,
That's kind of this would be a
Rededication?
Salem reporter story, I
Yeah.
think.
Have there been
Yes,
like
it is Britta.
dedications of when we get new sculptures, or there's such a thing as like a dedication ceremony or anything that,
You
a
know,
little fanfare?
sadly, I have to say no. It's, and the art is definitely has been a lower priority.
Yeah.
There was a big opening for the police station, the art was
Right.
basically like not on the page.
Huh.
Similarly for the library. And actually, there was no public announcement of the sculpture here,
Yeah.
or the artwork here. So let's just say there's opportunity to celebrate good things in our city and talk about these. These are public works projects. It's not fluff. Our city has decided to set aside 0.5%. That's low for most programs, but there's success to celebrate. And some of these artists are very engaging. Blessing Hancock, I mean, she hung out at Riverfront Park and talked to folks for in one of the public works days. She came out, it was probably 100 degrees, and we had an open event where we served water to get contributions of words for the police station sculpture. Doesn't have to be expensive, it's
Yeah.
really the effort.
Do you think it's intentional to not call attention to the fact that money is being spent toward what some people might not see as a priority? Do you think it's intentional?
I think that my own impression is that the city chose not to call out the sculpture here because there are financial issues.
Yeah.
I mean, this to me is the perfect example of an overdue public facility that I'm sure was well within budget. It is a beautiful design. It's won awards. The architects continue to tout this as cross-laminated timber, it works. Anyway.
Well,
It's a
still
bigger
think we
conversation.
should try
To do something.
to do something to honor it, especially if we have a donor, a living
Yes.
donor that is anxious, is
Excited
excited
to
about
see
it
it,
and
see the
participate,
replacement.
so let's go for it. If people start throwing whatever,
I think,
us,
I think it's only going to be celebrated. I don't think we need to be worried about sharing it. We also have dedicated funds that this is exactly what they're supposed to do is clean and repair.
there's always gonna be somebody out there who's gonna
But
even yell about something.
at this point, we've celebrated the 50th anniversary of the opening of the Civic Center. The Civic Center has been nominated for the National Register of Historic Places. The library was successfully, revamped for serving the future. Now, the Civic Center is gonna go through a seismic, upgrade. The city's taking care of the art that's there. It's like a feel-good human interest story.
Yeah.
And I think that our friends at Landmarks would be happy to collaborate, people at Willamette Heritage would be happy to collaborate. you know,
Yeah,
seems like a,
well, maybe we,
Let me start by
Okay.
just nailing down a timeline and seeing if Lee's comfortable with giving us a specific date. And from a specific date, then we can share with, yes, it's Britta and her friend is Ellen. Maybe you know Ellen as well.
Ellen Lindbergh.
Ellen
Well,
Stevens.
Oh,
Yes, you
And
did.
Ellen is a longtime SCAN board member. And she and her husband have also been generous donors
she is.
to things like art and parks and stuff like that.
So once I know Ellen actually watches a lot of these meetings back and pays attention to our meeting agenda and minutes very closely.
Okay,
So there's a
great.
chance that she will hear this, but once I hear back from Lee, and if I can get a specific date, I'll make sure I communicate with them, and then I'll work with the two of you as well to see if we want other commissioners out there. And then it's a feel-good story, so Krista,
Yeah.
we'll make sure to loop you in on exact dates so we can share it for social media as well.
And it's right across the street from CB2 Architects where Spencer works.
Yeah, nice.
And they are going to be involved in the Civic Center project. You know,
Yep.
it's good to have reasons for people to get out of their caves and come out and celebrate something.
Well, it's getting past 5, so, new business, anybody have any new business? I think we've covered a lot. Is there anything else that anyone wants to add?
I just want to just say for the record that the Oregon Artist Series Foundation will present only one more exhibit in the art hall at the library.
Yeah.
And so I know that there's conversation about the kiosk that will have the city's collection and other things on it. But I was just in the art hall over the weekend, and it seems like with the moving about that will happen at the Civic Center, that perhaps that art hall could be a place to install the paintings that are currently in the city manager and mayor's office suite. So I just wanted to put that down
Yeah, rather than to go into storage.
and pay for storage,
Right.
that the city should use space that it has that's clean, protected,
Right.
has hanging hardware in place. And I'm just putting that out there. It's not an
Yeah.
action item. I just want to get it.
No, I think it's
That's a
something
great
that
idea.
we should, I mean, is there a plan for what is gonna happen to the work that's gonna get taken, displaced from the civic center work?
Not that I've heard of.
Can we look into that?
Yeah. Mhm.
And find out, maybe next time, get an update on that, and
Definitely.
then we could maybe be part of selecting the work that we want to go in there and hang,
There's not that much work at the Civic Center. There is a small suite of works on paper in the Public Works former office, the traffic control room. And then there is work in the mayor and city manager's office suite.
Mhm.
And there's a Carl Hall painting there. It's pretty nice. The Mayor Hoy requested that. I don't know if anyone has spoken to incoming Mayor Hoy about whether there's something that she would like. I don't know where people are moving their workspaces.
Have they already moved?
No.
not yet.
Oh, okay. And then there's the chambers too, the council chambers, there's a bunch of stuff in there.
Yes, there is. Good
They're gonna
point.
be working on that too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
interesting work in there.
But
kinda
not all of it
disparate
is,
work.
not all of it is part of the public art collection.
Okay,
You know, I think that as dignitaries have visited Salem, some of them have brought items which
okay,
at one point, a lot of the SPAC assisted in removing a lot of those gifted items out of that and then installing some art. But then there is just a stream of things, you know, of
There's
sister
still-
city and other relationships.
yeah,
Um,
so, yeah, that good point, that's great. Anything
I,
else? Yeah,
I only have one other
Yeah.
point. I did see a photograph of outgoing Mayor Hoy in either the Statesman or the Salem Reporter. He is standing in front of a large painting that is part of the city's collection. If I had any of the background on that work, I could have called that out, like, thanks, Mayor Hoy, and isn't it great to see this work by,
yeah.
you know, Christine Darcy painted in
Mhm.
whatever
Mhm.
behind him. So I really do think that any time we can just drip out content
Mhm.
about this stuff,
Mhm.
our collection,
Right.
it's good.
Okay, action items, do we need to list
No,
those?
no action items. Our action that we took today was approval of the agenda and formation of a subcommittee.
Okay, okay, so those are done. Any other comments?
I'll just throw one more thing out, just a booster of artists in Salem. Jessica Ramey, who is, lives in our SCAM community, also is the woman owner of a small business downtown, the art department. She has a show opening at the gallery at Chemeketa Community College. There's an opening coming up.
15th?
Oh, I hope it's not the same day. Oh, maybe. I
I
thought it was the following week.
maybe it's the 22nd.
But you know what? Good to be aware of these things, and if you're able, there's a free reception. I'm sure there's nothing, you know, it's not like a elaborate thing, but
22nd, I'm sorry, it's the 22nd.
she's a total booster of downtown good things. She's great. Yeah, she's great.
She's done puppet parades and all sorts of.
She's our street painting artist.
She was our street
Yeah.
painting artist.
Yeah, she's one of the most creative people around Salem. She's doing something with inflatable reflective material. I don't know what that's gonna be like.
She is the kind of person who could do a work of temporary art. I think she did a cardboard, large-scale puppet procession when she might have lived in the Grant neighborhood.
Yeah. No, she didn't live in the Grant neighborhood, but it started at Grant School and it went down to the Saturday market.
Yeah.
I think she did it a couple times.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
we could get more stuff, if we could help share information, that this stuff just bubbles up.
Yeah.
It's not just in a couple of neighborhoods. It's out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, how many people showed up for our street painting party? It was great. And then we roped in some other people who happened to be, you know, they had just come from a funeral. They were in our part of the park and we gave them free ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a heads up that, there's some people in mine in the Grant neighborhood who are very anxious to be able to paint their fences, their private fences in their alleyways. And they are, planning to contact the city about how to facilitate that. It's coming up.
So it would be the alley facing side of their fence.
You know, graffiti remediation.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Essentially. And right now it's kind of murky in a murky sign code type situation, so.
Good to know.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. I think some work, as I understand it, has progressed on that with Keith, that some sort of discovery and a little bit of background was made with Keith, so we can look at what he found out.
And what happens if someone were to do some painting on the fence on their property?
They were told that if anybody complained about it, it would have to get painted out.
If someone complained.
If someone complained, at this point, it's not exactly allowed, I suppose, not really. Yeah, there's no guidelines for it, the way that there is for the street painting. So it's kind of anything goes, if they do at this point. So it'd be nice if it were some kind of program with guidelines.
Or at least penalty free,
Yeah,
you know. I can't think of something similar in our greater scan neighborhood off the top of my head.
there have been other ones, I think Highland, there's some in Highland, there's some people who, their fences were continually tagged.
Mhm,
And they just ended up doing a, simple mural on there,
mhm.
and it really helps a lot.
Here's one near my neighborhood, I hesitate to ever bring it up in case.
It's the thing, it's been.
But I
kinda
enjoy it
under-
every time I walk by.
Yeah, it's been kind of under the radar because people
Smile.
are worried that it's gonna that the city's gonna complain about it.
Yeah.
If it's a project that once, that you want to specifically address with spec, again, not that the spreadsheet rules, but it would be something that you would want to identify and then form a subcommittee or assign someone to specifically work on it and prioritize that. Is that something that you see in 2025? It's the fence painting, that goes above utility wraps, that goes above, all these other things that potentially you want to do. It's always going to be about capacity. So what do we really think the capacity is, knowing that we always need to leave a little room for projects that get assigned to specs, such as the sculptures acquisition, that's going to take a lot of time and focus and energy. And now the Salem Kaiser Together sign, that you want to leave capacity for that while, prioritizing the other things that you want to bring forward. So if it's one of those things that you want specs specifically to address, I imagine the reach out is going to go to city leadership, council. There's feedback loops there, that code can be addressed. Typically, the city will hear about things for quite a while before any action is taken, but if you want to get ahead of that and you want to prioritize SPAC taking a look at that, it's just a question on, do you want to put it on your 2025 project list?
And I think as you're talking to the neighbor, you're involved with the network of neighborhood leaders, just apart from your involvement with SPAC. And it seems to me that, things bubble up in those settings. And as you're doing kind of active listening, you can kind of bring stuff that you hear about to this body. I haven't heard about the face painting, the fence painting. But I know, I would still love to see a street mural within in the Fairmount area. And I don't have a location, and I bring it up, as I'm out and about. But I think if we can all bring things to this table, or screen as we hear about them.
Yeah.
It's just good to be kind of a sieve that, ideas come through. It's like, well, maybe later, or keep it on the table.
Especially if it's coming directly from the community,
Yeah.
members of the community who are wanting to do it.
Mhm.
So I think that starts to become a priority maybe when there's enough of a push from, people in Salem. That's where we really represent them, I would think.
Yeah.
So if it's coming from them, that they feel strongly that it's something they want to do, then it's something that maybe we, at some point.
Yeah.
Try to facilitate it to happen.
Yeah. And I actually think people coming together to solve a problem, people creatively bringing a solution to a recurring problem that's like a, petty crime level type thing is a good thing. It's not like they're asking you to buy a can of paint. They're saying, I've got a solution here, and you know what? After we did this stretch of fence, the tagging stopped. Yeah.
Okay, anything else? Anybody else have a comment or?
Spencer's got his hand up.
Spencer? Oh,
I think that's actually, that's
It's
actually
your
my,
cursor.
my cursor is a little
Never
hand.
mind.
No, it's your cursor, it's not.
That was.
Never mind, Spencer.
We're so used to.
I was
the
trying to look her up,
symbols, those little, yeah, right. Okay, well, if nobody else has anything, then let's adjourn the meeting at 5:27.
All right, thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to get a tour or at least hear more about the building rehab that CB2 is working on the block.